Hello, everybody. Today we are going to start with a new unit, which is space exploration. It's a very interesting unit. You're going to enjoy the lesson, which is really nice. And the whole theme is very interesting and very attractive. First of all, let's have a look at the pictures here. As you we can see a rocket, we can see the astronauts, we can see spacecrafts. All of these are related to space explorations, to finding out what do we have in space, what is there in space. Okay, so this is what are we going to discuss today. Why do people explore space? Let's see. I want
Space,
you to watch this
humanity's final
video,
frontier.
and
From
of
the
course,
humble invention of
please
the Wright brothers
take
glider
notes,
to the moon landing less
okay?
than 70 years later, technology has
Just
come a
to
long way.
tell me why
However,
is
there is still
exploring
so
space
much about
something
space we
important
just don't
and
know
how
about
is
yet.
it beneficial?
But how did space travel and exploration all begin? After the Second World War, the United States and the Soviet Union wanted to display their prowess by reaching for the stars. Both superpowers were able to successfully launch rockets, satellites, and even animals into orbit. In 1961, the Soviet Union was the first to put a man in space, Yuri Gagarin. Not to be outdone, the United States soon trumped the Soviet Union's crowning achievement. In 1969, Apollo 11 successfully landed on the moon. Not just content with the moon, both superpowers also wanted to explore the rest of the solar system. Unmanned probes were sent to visit the solar system's other planets and moons. The most successful of these, Voyagers 1 and 2, were launched in 1977. Together, these two probes have done flybys of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Back on Earth, the Russians proved that humans could live in space for months at a time, sending a number of space stations into orbit during the 70s and 80s. These culminated with the launch of Mir in 1986, which continued to operate until 1998. On that same year, the International Space Station was launched, where it continues to operate to this day. Scientists also wanted to bring space materials back to Earth without having to send astronauts. In 2003, the Japanese Hayabusa spacecraft was launched on a mission to collect samples from a near-Earth asteroid. It returned 7 years later, landing in South Australia. In its payload were a small number of particles collected from the asteroid itself. Not to be forgotten, Mars was also the final destination for a number of unmanned rovers sent by the US and Russia. The most recognizable of these, NASA's Curiosity, successfully landed in late 2012, where it continues to find evidence of whether life was once possible on the red planet. So where will space exploration go to from here? Mars was also the final destination for a number of unmanned rovers sent by the US and Russia. The most recognizable of these, NASA's Curiosity, successfully landed in late 2012, where it continues to find evidence of whether life was once possible on the red planet. So where will space exploration go to from here?
So as you can see here, they told us about some of the explorations, especially about Mars and if life was found on Mars. This is what we are going to talk about today. So let's check out our lesson. So what is space exploration? As a definition, space exploration is the physical exploration of outer space, both by human safe space flights and by robotic spacecraft. Why do we explore? There are many reasons why we explore space. The most important thing is to make scientific discoveries, finding for a new place to live on, improving or understanding life in human body, space, and so on. So there are many reasons why scientists explore space. So as I said, our lesson is about space exploration, and the title of our lesson is Mars, Our Neighbor in Space. Let's see what is our lesson about. First of all, we are going to start with the objectives. We are going to identify the concept of space exploration, define space exploration, identify the achievements of space exploration. Objective 2 is related to our comprehension skill, organizing events in chronological order. And objective 3 is related to vocabulary. We have to figure out the meanings of unfamiliar words using context clues. And the last objective, we have to answer different referential and inferential questions related to the text, demonstrate critical understanding of the text through answering different discussion and critical thinking. This is the summary of the chapter. So by the end of this unit or of this lesson, you will learn how Earth and Mars are similar and why it is important to find a planet similar to Earth. Before we start with the lesson, of course, we are going to start with our comprehension skill, which is chronological order or time order. Okay? This skill is related to organizing the events in order from the beginning to the end. So the author organizes the events in the story or the steps in a process in order in which that occur. The sequence of events helps the reader understand the story. Okay? What happened first, what happened next, and what happened then, what happened at the end. Some of the transitions that are used in sequence of events are first, next, then, while, after that, until, now, moreover, when. We can use dates, we can use years, okay? So mostly these are some of the transitions that might be used in chronological order, and this skill is related to organizing the events in a story or the steps in a process in order. Let's start solving the first exercise. Read the paragraph below, then number the events in the correct order. Making orange juice concentrate from fresh oranges is done entirely by machines. First, so when you see the word first, this means that this is the first event. So first, oranges are dumped into a moving belt. They travel into a machine which washes them with detergent. Next, this is event number 2. They are rolled into juicing machines where 700 oranges per minute are split and squeezed. Then, this is event number 3. The rinds or the skin of the oranges are thrown out the end of a long tube. At the same time, this is also a new event. The juice goes through small holes in the bottom of the tube. Next, the juice goes into another machine called the finisher. There, the seeds and other tiny objects are removed. Last, the juice goes into large tanks where most of the water is removed. So we have to number the events. The first thing that happens, oranges are dumped into a moving belt. So this is number 1. Number 2, they are rolled into juicing machines. Number 3, the rinds are thrown. Number 4, the juice goes through small holes. Number 5, the juice goes into another machine called the finisher. And at the end, event number 6, the juice goes into large tanks. So this is the way you number the events, as you can see here, and the rest are here, the 3 events that are left. Now we are going to solve another exercise, but in a different way. How in a different way? Let's see. Read the below paragraph, then fill in the flow chart. There's something very important called a flow chart in which you fill the events in order. Let's see. Let's read the text. Soccer is a game that has been played for numerous years. In fact, many people believe that it began in England over 800 years ago. About 200 years ago, in the early 1800s, boys in England played a sport like soccer, but they called it football. However, each school made up their own rules. In 1963, a group of players met and wrote official rules for soccer. Soccer started spreading to other countries. In 1904, this is the third event, an international group called FIFA formed to make sure that every team around the world followed the same soccer rules. Today is also an event. Soccer is one of the most popular sports in the world. So if I ask you what happened in the 1800s, boys in England played a sport like soccer, but they called it football. In 1863, a group of players met and wrote official rules for soccer. In 1904, an international group called FIFA formed to make sure that every team around the world followed the same soccer rules. Today, which is nowadays, soccer is one of the most popular sports game in the world. And this is what do we call a flow chart. We call it flow because see these arrows, they show that the events are happening one after the other, year after year. So in 1800s, in 1863, 1904, and in 2020, because they're asking about today. So this is the way we answer exercises related to chronological order or time order, and it means writing the events or steps in process in order, and you might find this a lot in biographies. Now we are going to move to something also very important, and I want all of you to focus because this is very important and it's the first time you have something like this. We are going to now study how to test or analyze charts or table analyzing. Let's see. This is called statistical charts or tables analyzing. In order to answer where we have charts and tables, we need to do the following. Let's see. This is the chart. This is the chart that we are going, the one here. This is the chart that we are going to analyze. Let us take a look at the chart. Let's look at the chart. If you look at the chart, you can see that the chart is talking about the numbers of deaths due to pollution in 10 countries. In India, in China, in Pakistan, in Nigeria, in Indonesia, in Russia, in USA, Congo, Brazil, and Philippines. Okay? So this chart, statistical chart, shows us the numbers of deaths due to pollution in 10 countries. Okay? And as you can see, India had the largest number of deaths, and Philippines the lowest number. The bar graph below depicts the number of deaths due to pollution in 10 countries. This is the title of the graph, the title of the statistical chart. Okay, let's move now to the other questions. What do you conclude about the number of deaths due to pollution? Which country had the highest number of deaths? And which one has the lowest? Analyze the graph and give a conclusion. What do we have to do in order to write a correct answer? The first step you have to do is, you have to write your answer in a form of a single paragraph. Even if you are asked more than one question, you have to write them in a single paragraph. The first thing you have to do is to write a topic sentence. A topic sentence is taken from the heading of the chart directly. We mean as the one written in the chart in the back, the numbers of deaths due to pollution in 10 countries. This is the topic sentence. Analysis of data presented in chart. You can see the number of deaths in India is 1.8 million. The number of deaths in Philippines is 0.9 million, and so on. And the last part of your answer is going to be the conclusion. Okay, let's see my answer and divide it into parts. I already divided it in colors, okay? The first part, the topic sentence, is written in blue. The bar graph below depicts the amount of deaths due to pollution in 10 different countries. This is the topic sentence. Now we move to the analysis of the data. India has the highest number of deaths, 2.5 million, followed by China, 1.83 million. Pakistan 0.31, Nigeria 0.25 million, Indonesia 0.21 million, Russia 0.17 million, USA 0.15 million, Congo 0.12 million, Brazil 0.10 million, and Philippines 0.9 million respectively. This word is very important. You have to write respectively. Okay, so the first step is done. I wrote the topic sentence. This is it. The second step is done. I analyze the data presented in the chart. Now we move to the conclusion. What do you conclude? We conclude that the highest number of deaths due to pollution is where? In India, because it's 2.51 million. So it's the highest number. And the lowest numbers of deaths is in Philippines, 0.9 million, which means that this country is highly contaminated, which is India. India is highly contaminated or highly polluted. So this is the way we answer such a question. So follow this strategy every time you are asked to answer such a question. Let's now move to the vocabulary words. We are going to start with the first word, mapping. It's a noun and it's the activity or process of making a map. So when someone is making a map, we say this person is mapping. Definite is an adjective which is fixed or certain or clear. Investigation is a noun. The act or process of examining a crime or statement carefully, especially to discover the truth. So when you investigate, it means you are trying to find the truth. Fossil is the noun, and it means the shape of a bone, a shell, a plant, or animal that has been preserved in rock for a very long period. Constellation is a noun, and any of the groups of stars in the sky that seem from Earth to form a pattern and have been given names is called a constellation. Astronomy is the scientific study of the universe. When you study this, the study of universe, the sun, the planets, the stars, the moon, the space, this science is called astronomy. Now let's start reading our reading lesson. Mars, our neighbor in space. Read the following text in which the writer sheds light on exploring our neighboring planet Mars. When you are through, answer the questions that follow. Mars, our neighbor in space. Astronomers all over the world were waiting in excitement as August 1993 approached. Mars Observer, the American spacecraft, was scheduled to move into orbit around Mars and begin sending new information back to Earth. In addition to mapping the planet, Mars Observer was going to study the Martian atmosphere and surface. Unfortunately, scientists lost contact with Mars Observer mission, which cost $845 million, failed. So, in August 1993, a spacecraft, an American spacecraft called Mars Observer, moved to orbit the Mars, study its atmosphere, its surface. But unfortunately, this very expensive spacecraft was scientists lost contact with, and they didn't have any information. In contrast, the United States' previous mission to Mars was a great success. In 1976, 2 American spacecraft landed on Mars in order to search for signs of life. So in 1976 also, 2 American spacecrafts landed on Mars to find signs of life. The tests that the Viking landers performed have negative results. However, scientists still had questions about our close neighbor in space. They wanted to investigate further into the possibility of life on Mars. This was the purpose of the Mars Observer mission. So, both missions' purpose was to see if there were signs of life on Mars. Scientists' interest in the red planet is the Mars, as you can see in the picture, is based on an assumption. They believe that 4.5 billion years ago, Mars and Earth began their existence under similar conditions. During the first billion years, liquid water, in contrast to ice, was abundant on the surface of Mars. This is an indication that Mars was much warmer at that time. Mars also had a thicker atmosphere of carbon dioxide, CO2. Many scientists think it is possible that life began under these favorable conditions. After all, Earth had the same conditions during its first billion years. When life arose, at some point in time, Earth developed an atmosphere that is suitable for living and an ozone layer. The ozone layer protects Earth. It also survived and became more complex. In contrast, Mars lost its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide. Ultraviolet radiation intensified. The planet eventually grew colder and its water froze. The two Viking landers performed 4 experiments. 3 experiments tested for biological activity on the soil. However, these tests didn't lead to any definite results. So all the tests that they didn't lead to clear results. The 4th experiment looked for any evidence of life, dead or alive, but found none. So they couldn't find anything. Scientists want another investigation of Mars because they want to map the planet's surface. They want to search for fossils, the ancient remains of life, if life ever existed on Mars. Scientists believe that future missions might find records of it under sand or in the ice. They are very disappointed in the failure of the Mars Observer mission and want to start a new mission. Other countries are interested in Mars too. For example, Russia is also planning to send an unnamed spacecraft to Mars in the near future. Even if future missions discover no evidence of past or present life on Mars, scientists should keep looking for the answers to other intriguing questions. How is Earth different from Mars? How can we explain the development of life here on our planet and not on Mars? How can we explain the development of our life here, not on Mars, or our close neighbor? Are we alone in the universe? Scientists should not leave these questions unanswered. So, as you can see, the American Vikings and the Mars Observer failed to find any sign of life on Mars. But the author thinks that they should not leave these questions unanswered. It means that they should keep working in order to find any sign of life or any answer to all of our questions about Mars. Let's now move to the exercises. Refer to the text to answer the following questions in complete sentences using your own words. What were the 2 missions that Mars Observer was going to perform? Mars Observer was going to find if there is any signs of life on Earth and to map the atmosphere of Mars also. Name 2 countries that seem to be interested in exploring Mars. It was mentioned Russia and America are interested. According to paragraph 3, why do scientists assume there was life on Mars? Explain. They assume that because the previous trips of the spacecrafts show that there was water, and they believe that Mars and Earth were created under the same cultural, let's say, same culture and same, characteristics. So that's why they think that they assume that there was life on Mars. Number 4, explain the writer's attitude towards space exploration. Support your answer with a piece of evidence from the passage. The writer is with exploring space and he wants them to continue exploring because in the last paragraph he said they should not keep our questions unanswered. So he wants an answer for every question. Refer back to the text to complete the following sentences. The Mars Observer mission failed because they lost contact with it. That's why it failed. In order to search for signs of life in Mars, America sent two Viking spacecrafts. When Mars lost its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide, what happened? The ultraviolet light was became to affect this planet, and its water became frozen. Refer to paragraphs 1 and 2 to fill in the flow chart. What happened in 1967? In 1967, the two American Viking spacecrafts were sent. And in 1993, the Mars Observer was sent to space to discover Mars. These are the answers. The two missions that Mars Observer was going to perform were orbit around Mars and begin sending new information back to Earth. Number 2, the two countries that seem interested in exploring Mars are America and Russia. Number 3, based on paragraph 3, scientists assumed that there was life on Mars and Earth began their existence under the same conditions. Both planets have water, which is a sign of life. The writer is with exploring space. He mentioned in the last paragraph that scientists should answer all the unanswered questions, which shows that he wants scientists to search more and more. Exercise B, as we continued it, they lost contact with it. In order to search for signs of life in Mars, scientists sent two spacecrafts to Mars. When Mars lost its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide, it showed some signs of life because of the presence of water. And of course, the event in 1976, two American spacecrafts landed on Mars in order to search for signs of life, and in 1993, Mars Observer, the American spacecraft, was scheduled to move into orbit around Mars and begin sending new information back to Earth. This was everything. Thank you for watching.